Hi, everybody. This is GW again. Want to give you my government thoughts now for day 57, day 57 of the Trump administration. And it has been an interesting week, and we can only hope that it's going to continue to be just as interesting as it is. I mean, what we can really hope is that it stops being this interesting and it gets better. But I just read a thing that said that most of the people who have been listening to this have been listening for about a minute and a half. So I got to tell you, these only go about 10 minutes, sometimes 15. And why don't you give me that amount of time? Just go ahead, give it a good listen. And it doesn't take a lot. You don't even have to look at the picture. If you don't want to, you can just kind of close your eyes because there's not going to be a lot of graphics or anything. This is literally a talking head going after the little bit of conversation that we have. All right, so let me talk just the government thoughts. Day 57. So what's been going on? Well, it's been kind of an up and down week. All right. First of all, you continue to have Trump's administration cutting the aid to the USAID. Now, there's been some unintended consequences as they start looking at that. One of which is that it appears that this lack of aid from the U.S. aid is going to cause tuberculosis to become more widespread because we're not going to be sending the materials, the medicines, the vaccines, the various things that might be needed in order to keep that at bay and to just kind of stop it. Now, I don't know whether you all know this or not. Tuberculosis is bad. Okay. And it's been greatly reduced in the world because of the efforts that we've done. Bringing it back is not a good thing. Now, we also have Trump, who continues to threaten legislators and lawyers who were against him during the last administration and the ones who worked on the January 6th committee and the ones who are trying to bring the charges against him for, the things like mishandling of classified documents and all those little things, that when my time in the service and my time as a defense contractor, if I did that, I'd be fired immediately and I would be likely to have some legal actions taken that would be unpleasant. Now, don't know why, he gets away with this. So we also had on Meet the Press this week, we had Senator Chris Murphy, and he's from Connecticut. He's a Democratic senator. He's not a Republican senator, but he sat there and was talking about what was going on in the world, what is going on in this administration. And his opinion is that we have less than 1 year to save democracy. Seems like we need to have a little urgency in that. If we have less than 1 year, that's going to make it that we don't get to go to the midterms and be able to have some radical thing happen on the midterms. We have less than 1 year to save democracy. So between now and when? Christmas? Well, let's hope we still have a democracy by Christmas. Think about that. Okay, now we also have, that court cases that we have. And we have the administration lawyers are frustrating the federal judges. They're basically ignoring some of the actions that the federal judges are trying to have them do. They are answering with generalities when the judges are asking for specifics, and they're just basically making it so that it is very difficult, in a courtroom situation. This is a country that is ruled by the rule of law. And if we don't pay attention to the rule of law, we are going to have a serious problem. Go back to Senator Murphy's point of less than a year to save our democracy. Without rule of law, it goes away really fast. So then we also have a lot of polls that came out. Now there was I could spend the next hour talking about these polls. I won't because I don't want to take that amount of time. And they're not all negative to Trump. So there are a surprising number of people surprising to me, probably not to the Republicans who are listening, surprising number of people who are in favor of the direction of the country that Trump is taking us. Surprising number. And that number has increased since November when the election happened. And the number for the Republicans who are satisfied with the direction that the country is going, 74%. That's an unbelievable number of people who are in favor of the direction of the country. There are things that I do not understand with that number. The handling of immigration. 55% are in favor of the way we're handling immigration. Now, in all honesty, I don't think they're doing that bad a job at the handling of immigration, except for they keep going off and sending airplanes full of people off into the, El Salvador, and pay El Salvador to take them off their hands and put them into prison. They tried it at Guantanamo. That didn't work so well. So now they send them to El Salvador without due process. These people, they haven't even been really vetted to be sure that they got the right Garcia, when they went in and grabbed them. It just unbelievable. As we go through here. So we also have that 46% of the country think that the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, is a good idea. And I don't argue with that. I think that having a department that is responsible to make sure that any organization, large or small, that they're responsible to make sure it runs efficiently and runs as smoothly as it possibly can, and it's not wasteful. No one complains about that. No one says that's wrong. So the idea of DOGE, I think, is a good idea. Implementation, on the other hand, is crap. So what can you say? You also have that the economy that you have. So not everything is good for Trump. Economy and inflation. So in the economy, you have 82% of the country feel today, 57 days in to the administration, that the economy is fair or poor. It's a huge number. That fair or poor. Huge, huge number, negative number. And inflation, how is inflation going? 55% of the country says that it's not okay. 73% of the independent voters, who are the swing voters in many states, 73% says that inflation is not going well. That's, interesting, factual numbers. That was a poll that was taken. Also saw a thing, and this I really did find interesting. If you are a person and you are less than 60 years old, well, 69.1% of the job growth that has happened in the time that you were alive happened during the time when Democrats were in the presidency. 69.1% of the job growth in the last 60 years has happened while Democrats were president. Now, in the last 45, if you're less than 45 years old, 74.7% happened during the Democratic presidencies. And if you're a young adult if you're less than 30 years old, 100% of the job growth that has occurred in the United States has occurred while the Democrats were president. That's kind of an interesting set of numbers. I just throw those out. And they also have in the first 2 months of this administration, first 57 days, inflation is up about 30%. Jobless claims have increased to 242,000. The markets are significantly down. The S&P itself is down about 10%. Healthcare at risk for 38 million people, and that's the people on Medicaid. 38 million people who aren't sure how their health care is going to work out. And thousands of people being laid off at the Veterans Administration, which puts all the services for the veterans who have served this country so well, people who have put their life at risk for the country, well, they're under attack. The services that they have is under attack. So as I look at all that, I just want to close with 4 or 5 points here. There are things that I find very, very troubling. And I don't have answers to these. I just find them very troubling. Today, phone call between Trump and Putin about the Ukraine and trying to get a ceasefire in place for the Ukraine war. Putin makes an unreasonable demand, saying something about having to stop all the intelligence and all the military aid that anything the U.S. or any of our allies are sending to Ukraine. He puts that on the table and gets no pushback from Trump. That is really troubling. The U.S. Institute of Peace, that non-government agency, U.S. Institute of Peace, it's a small agency. DOJ went in and tried to get inside their building to take over their networks like they have at so many other places. Because they're a non-government agency, there's no reason why they should be able to go in there. They're not officially part of the government. They're just kind of a subsidiary out here somewhere. So they got turned away at the door. So they then turned around and came back. And they came back with muscle. They came back with the U.S. Marshals attached. Armed people coming in going, you got to let us in now, or you got so-and-so, you got the marshal over here who's going to shoot you. Well, I didn't say shoot you. I said shoot you, So that is not right. They called the D.C. police, and the D.C. police came in, and they backed the U.S. Marshals. D.C. police in a tough position right there. So when you start having, we're going to come into your office, we're going to come into your agency, and if you say no, we're going to force our way in. They didn't have a court order. They didn't have a warrant. They didn't have anything other than the fact that they said, hey, we're from the Department of Government Efficiency. That should not be enough for a person to come in and force their way into the building. When force is used in that type of manner, you cannot think anything other than democracy is in decline. Goes along with what Senator Murphy says. If these things continue to happen and they become ordinary and we become used to them and we stop caring and we stop pushing back, we're not going to have a democracy. We're not going to have a country that looks like what we have today. We won't. We just won't. Now, we also have several court rulings that are going on. Particularly, there was one that had to do with the immigration plane that went to El Salvador. And they basically went into that judge and said, you know, you need to stay out of our business. You can't tell a judge to stay out of your business. If you don't like the decision the judge puts out, take it to a higher court. And in this case, even if you take it to a higher court and a higher court and a higher court and ends up in the Supreme Court, they shouldn't complain about that because the Republicans have stacked the Supreme Court for the next 50 years to vote in a conservative manner. Why are they trying to throw away the rule of law when the top dog in the rule of law is on their side? I don't understand. And then you also have, as the final troubling point, Trump continues to actively say that he wants revenge on the people that made the acquisitions against him and the lawyers that made the cases against him, that he had to defend himself in. And I don't understand why all this is going on. So these are just troubling points that I have brought up. And these are just things. This is really, I'm just talking about things that have been talked about in the last 7 days. This is day 57. These are my government thoughts, my government opinions. Take them for what they're worth. You know, I hope you listen. I hope they make some sense. Please subscribe. Please follow. Please do whatever you want to do. You know, stand up and clap. You know, I think we all need to stand up, go outside our house. You know, raise a sign, and start making bigger and bigger comments. We are having protests all across the country, all across the world. The world is coming up on our side on this. So let's do that. Let's go out, as John Lewis used to say, and maybe get in a little good trouble. That's what I think might be a good idea. All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate you coming. I'm GW. Please subscribe, follow. I hope you enjoyed this. Leave me a comment. Whether you did or you didn't, I'd love to read them. And I will continue to do this. And hopefully, you know, y'all listen. Thanks a lot.